Good morning. We're here at day 3 of our tax and asset protection event here in wonderful Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Amanda Winalda, executive attorney with Anderson Business Advisors, and this weekend we focus a lot on infinity investing and how important having a mentor and learning from someone is to your investing. And we have a special treat. We have one of the best in the business, Aaron Adams from Alpine Capital. Aaron, how are you?
I am not an attorney.
He is not an attorney.
I only have an MBA.
It's okay.
It's useless.
We can still talk.
We can still talk?
You have a lot of other knowledge and things going on. So I've heard you speak a few times. You come to this event a lot for us.
Yeah.
And your backstory and how you got started is fascinating and inspiring. Can you just go through that for us?
Yeah, so, 24 years ago, I was teaching high school. And I loved teaching. I loved coaching. That was my superpower. I didn't love making $40,000 a year in Southern California, and that was hard. But I stumbled on the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. That book came out in 1998.
No way.
Yeah.
The late 1900s, as the kids say.
I heard he like self-published it in 95, and then they finally got picked up by the publisher that it went crazy with.
I feel like it's been around so much longer than that because so many people have read it and it's changed so many lives.
But then we're kind of dating ourselves because I just turned 50 this year. So.
Not me.
Not you, yeah. My wife just turned 30 and a few months extra. We didn't count that part. Anyway, so that book was new. There was no seminar company. There was no infomercials. I literally went to Barnes & Noble and started buying books on real estate investing, stumbled across that book, and like many of you watching, lost sleep from it. This whole concept of active income and passive income. And I actually found a real estate seminar by a guy named Bruce Norris with the Norris Group, which they're still doing seminars in Southern Cal. His son does them now. And it was a boot camp, and I paid $500 for a boot camp on foreclosure properties. And I remember sitting in there, and they're talking about LLCs and deeds of trust and pre-foreclosure and notice of default. And I realized there was this whole language of real estate that I knew nothing about. There was this whole language of investing that I knew nothing about. And I was intrigued. And like Robert Kiyosaki, I had a rich dad. I grew up here in Vegas. My dad was a casino executive. He was making like 200 grand a year in the 70s. Like that was baller.
That's big.
Yeah. And we moved to Atlantic City, New Jersey when I was in 8th grade. We left Vegas but he was a W-2 mindset. And as I read about this I realized that as a high school teacher, you really are trapped by your mindset until you expand that footprint of knowledge and move outside of that shell. And so, when you're a high school teacher, when you need extra money, you pick up summer school, you bartend on the weekends, you do
tutoring,
right?
All kinds of stuff.
I had never thought about my time having value, and I'd never thought about passive wealth that paid me every month. And so that was really the beginning of the journey. And that first year I bought a duplex and flipped it, and I made 50 grand. And for Aaron Adams, the teacher, making 40K, that was just because I went back and I did the math, and I had spent no more than 20 hours on that thing.
Really?
Yeah.
That little?
I went to Home Depot. I got a crew of because I was a Spanish teacher, right?
Oh, yeah, you're just like,
so
hola, guys.
I'm like, órale, right? And I brought these guys over to my duplex, and they did the work. And then I bought Carlton Sheets property management course. So I could have a lease, and I bought that on eBay, and then I leased out the other side of the duplex. We lived in it, and we sold it 6 months later, and I left title with 50K, and that just blew me away. And it's funny because I've bought over 10,000 properties in the last 23 years, but man, it's that first deal. It's like that first hit of coin. You remember?
Oh, my first hit of I think you're giving us a little clue of what part of Southern California you were in.
LA County for sure, right? So that deal, by 4 years later, that year I made over $600,000 buying and selling property, and still $40,000 at the high school. And I was really torn because I thought maybe this is just a fad, and maybe I should just keep doing real estate on the side, because year 5 you get vested in your pension, and in that school district it wasn't those pension. It was like a $9,000 pension for life once you hit 20 years in the system.
That's so long though,
right?
And sell your soul.
Yeah. And when you don't know, you think, well, maybe I should just dabble in real estate. So I was really torn, and I loved coaching. My girls lost in the finals of state for volleyball that year. And so I didn't want to leave that piece because, man, there's nothing like the purest teaching is coaching. You know, way more than the classroom where you get kids who don't want to be there, but those kids all want to be there for sports. And how ironic also that 24 years later, I'm the volleyball coach at Idaho Falls High School. And
no way.
Yeah.
Bringing it back.
We just finished 6th in the state this year.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And I do have a vested interest. My stepdaughter is the setter. And so she's been like entertaining offers to play in
that's
college.
so exciting.
Yeah.
That's so exciting.
And then I coach club also, so I have a group of. But with Anderson, actually, Toby, I was telling him this a couple of years ago that I was coaching because I had taken about 10 years off, and he's like, "Well, we set up a nonprofit for you, right?" And I was like,
What?
Yeah. And so Anderson put together a 501c3. Their nonprofit guy, Krim, is like
Krim's the best.
The best.
He's the best.
And we had a really unique situation with the nonprofit because I couldn't find a gym. I took over the club, which we had like 20 teams in the club. And so I decided, we're on 6 acres, and I said, well, can I build it in my backyard?
Oh, wow.
And he's like, I don't know, because there's going to be a personal use. But Anderson personally navigated all of that for me.
Step by step.
Handled the filings. It's just been, which is great because all I want to do is put money in it, let other people put money in it, and coach. And that's, it's interesting, like, that's kind of the next phase. It's like, what do you do after you've learned to make a lot of money? And it's, how do you bless other people's lives?
Oh, 100%.
That's like phase 2. So that's why, I had a pretty nice offer to sell the company a year ago, and it was so easy to say no because now I have all these like second mountain goals, the things that I want to do in that next phase.
And it's interesting because you said that you were struggling leaving teaching, but you never really left teaching.
No.
Even in all the real estate investing you were doing, you turned that into teaching.
It's funny because people will tease me. They're like, I have a friend who's in Toastmasters. He's like, dude, you break all the rules. You do not follow, and because I'm not a speaker, I'm a teacher. And so, today I'm excited to get in front of that room. And I was literally just thinking I'm going to be on the floor walking around because I want to see their faces.
You connect with people.
Yeah. And about 15 years ago, we started inviting investors to our biggest operation out in Indianapolis. Once a month for 3 days, we let Anderson investors from all over the world come. They meet all my partners from all of our markets. We teach them about investing. Michael Bowman, one of the Anderson partners, is there every month with Chuck, one of the strategists. And we do a 3-day event for those clients, and we let them buy deals, and we let them get entities set up. And so we've been doing that now for 14 years.
Yeah. And that's the Cash Flow Summit.
That's the Cash Flow Summit, yep.
And so as part of Infinity Investing, you get to come out to the Cash Flow Summit. Can they go to more than one? Because you do it in different areas?
Yeah, this year we added Idaho. And so in 24, we're going to do, we're definitely not doing Idaho in January because there's going to be 40 inches of snow. Right? So Idaho will be April, May, September, October, because volleyball.
Around your volleyball. Well, that's the benefit of being the boss, right?
Yeah.
You can organize the schedule.
In fact, in October, we had the event, and the night before, we had a match, and a bunch of the Anderson clients came to the volleyball match.
Oh, that's so cool.
And one of the dads literally called lines. He reffed for us. He had the little flag, and he was like calling the lines.
I love it.
Yeah, it was cool. So, yeah, so we'll do, and Idaho's a great, for those of you that may have attended the event, Idaho's been fantastic because we get a lot of people that come to the event, they want to test it out and buy one deal, and then they never work around to coming back again. And so that Idaho's giving people an excuse because we're 75 miles from Jackson Hole. And so a lot of them have come out and they'll go to Yellowstone and then catch the event. Yeah. So that's been nice.
So what kind of, you say come out and buy a deal, what deals are you offering? What is they're expecting to see there?
So it's, one thing that's unique, and I don't know of another group in the country that does it the way that we do it, where we sell turnkey properties that we bought. I bought the property already, I fixed it up, I rented it out. We sell it to our clients. Probably 75% of them use a 401k or an IRA to buy the property. Not a loan against it, they literally buy it inside the IRA. That's one of the things we teach in that weekend. And so if you're listening to this and you don't own real estate inside your 401k IRA, that's something that you need to learn how to do because a lot of investors lost a lot of money in 2008 when the market crashed.
Oh, yeah.
They were way too invested in the market. They had 100% of their retirement. Market crashed. They were hurting. The wealthiest Americans had about a third of their retirement accounts in real estate inside the 401k. And a lot of people are like, I didn't even know you could do that. And so we do a lot of turnkey properties to those clients, from anywhere from about 90 to 150,000. We have Charlotte properties, Kansas City, Indianapolis. They're rented $1,000, $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 a month, and we do everything. And so when they buy it in their 401k, the 401k goes on title. We collect the rents. We deal with the tenants. When they move out, we handle everything for them. We don't outsource any part of the business. And so you go from a property that I sell you to the management company that I own. My construction company does the maintenance. And then, we have clients, because we've been selling to clients for 15, 17 years. We have clients now who then they're ready to sell it, and we even put it on MLS and sell it for them.
That's awesome.
So we're there with them through that whole life cycle of the property.
And that builds confidence, because if you're going to property manage it, you're not going to do a shoddy job on the construction, because you don't want to have to be the one dealing with problems. So clients can feel confident in the whole process.
Well, and for example, in Indianapolis alone, we have 2,000 properties under management. And Heather, who screens tenants for us, has been there since 2007. And she's literally probably screened 100,000 tenants. Her eviction rate on 2,000 properties, we're only averaging about 3 a month.
Oh, that's amazing.
And so that's another thing that people are tapping into. They're tapping into the fact that there isn't a repair or a collapsed drain line or asbestos. We've seen it all.
No hidden thing happening.
Right. And a lot of people are like, I wouldn't even know where to get someone to replace lead paint, windows. We've dealt with that.
Yeah.
And so that's another thing where we help them, is they're benefiting from our 17, 18, 19 years of experience.
And so how do you have all this experience, how do you decide which markets to be in? Are there different types of assets you're doing in different markets?
Yeah.
And what's that based on?
It's interesting. So in Idaho, we've done a lot of storage units. We've done RV parks. We've done mobile home parks. One of the things that we've added because of my partnership with the Anderson partners, and because having attorneys as a partner is amazing. I never wanted to mess with syndications before, because I felt like it was such a high legal bar. I just didn't want to mess with that. And so we focused on individual properties. But starting a couple years ago, we're doing the 506B syndications. And we have our own in-house legal, our in-house finance and tax and accounting. And that's been nice, because a lot of people, for those of you that don't know what a syndication is, it just allows you to put 25, 40, 50,000 into a deal with me. And it's not a loan, it's not a fund. If 100 of us want to each put $50,000 into a $5 million project, it allows us to do that.
Yeah, if you're looking to take a smaller amount of money, leverage it in a bigger project, maybe better returns, you're not having to go out and find all these partners.
Yeah.
And then on the liability side, you could lose your investment, but you can only lose that investment. You're not going to lose more than that or have any liability if something goes wrong with the project. Yeah,
I was talking to one of Anderson's people, David, this morning, and he had put some money into one of our syndications. And I was giving him the update. He's like, I wish I would have done more. Because that was a development project, and it's 38 brand new homes, and we're leasing them now. And that syndication was $6 million, but I think it's going to be worth 10 or 11 this spring. And so for those that want to cash out, your 100,000 should be worth 180, 190, 200,000. It's
not too shabby.
No. And for those that want to stay in it, they're going to be making 10%. So if you keep your 100 grand in there, you're making 10 grand a year. And so that's been so if people want individual properties or individual markets, we have that. We're in Kansas City, we're in Indianapolis, we're in North Carolina, 2 markets, Charlotte and Winston. And what we really look at is cash flow. Obviously, we care about population growth and unemployment. We want it to be a landlord-friendly, business-friendly state. But we really want to make sure that our clients can get 7, 8, 9% net from the rents, and then 5 to 10% from the appreciation. And when you're doing that, then you're making a double-digit return. And so many of our clients are like, man, if I would have been making a double-digit return for the last 20 years with my 401k, my IRA, I'd be 2-3 times more wealthy than I am. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And the thing I love about having Alpine working with Infinity Investing is that if you're an Infinity Investing 360 member, you can go into the portal and the property lists are just there.
Yeah.
You can just look, you can choose a city, you can choose a price point, you can see the rate of return, everything's just right there and you can just kind of shop.
Yeah, and the only place in the world we list them is on that. We don't put them on MLS. We don't put them on our Alpine page. Toby came to me and said, I really would appreciate if you keep some inventory for my 360s. And so we did that only for him.
Yeah, I mean, if you like laying in bed and scrolling through Zillow and trying to do all the math in your spreadsheet,
same difference.
Go for it. Yeah. Or you could just log on into Infinity Investing and see it all right there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's we've added that in the last 6 months. And then even further, once a month we do a property update. Me, Toby, and then my different market partners, we all get on. In fact, this Monday, actually, we'll get on and walk through what's new, talk about how things are going, answer questions. And so that's been a cool kind of new thing that we've added just in the last 6 months.
That's awesome. So if somebody wanted to get started with Alpine, what's the first step?
We obviously we have our Alpine Capital Solutions page, alpinecs.com. They can reach out to us. Or Infinity Investing through the Anderson page. And so if you're watching this through Anderson or Infinity, the links for both are on there. And if you want to attend our event, what's cool is if you're not sure, maybe you're like, I don't know if I want to buy property, we live stream it every month. And
so you don't have to go to Indianapolis.
Right. So if you don't really want to go. In fact, the event from 2 weeks ago is sitting on the calendar. And so you can go back and watch some of Friday, watch some of Saturday, and get a kind of a feel for it. I would say 75% of the people that attend now have watched all. I've had people like, I watched it 3 times and now I'm here. And so, and that was actually a good outgrowth of COVID because we weren't live streaming it before. And every month there's like 100, 150, 200 people on that live stream.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been cool.
I'm the same way. I like to get the information slowly, really digest it, and then make decisions. So it's really good for those types of people. And
we're the opposite of pressure sales. I'd never collect earnest money on a deal. So when someone says, they come out, I want to buy 3 properties, I'm like, okay. We don't even, as an attorney, we don't even do contracts at the event.
Oh, wow.
We only do an LOI, non-binding, and even when I do a purchase contract, I don't do earnest money. Well,
that also speaks to the fact that you don't have to do that. You have so much interest in this stuff that, that didn't work out. Well, come back to us when you're ready, but there's a line out the door for these properties.
Yeah, and that's, people can feel when you're like desperate. And, it's interesting. We started selling to international investors back in 2014. And so I did events in Hong Kong and Singapore and Tokyo.
Wow.
And we had this book of clients, and I realized I could sell all of our properties every month just in Hong Kong. There's such an appetite for U.S. properties. It was interesting. We 2 problems with that, because I've had people be like, don't sell America to the world. Like, okay, settle down there, cowboy, right? But one problem was that we had a management issue because Hong Kong's 12 hours ahead. And so at 9 a.m., they're trying to do a Zoom at 9 p.m.
Yeah, that's rough.
That was a problem. So my property managers were like, we hate the international clients because they don't understand the difference between state income tax and property tax. So there was a learning curve.
Yeah.
But then the other thing that came up is if you have one client that is more than 40% of your business, you have a boss.
Yeah, that's true too.
You have a boss. And so I made a decision.
Diversify on that end as well.
Yeah, and so we sell about 25% of our properties to Wall Street groups who would buy them all. We sell about 15% to international. But one of the reasons we still like to work with individual investors is for our business, I like meeting 20, 30 new people that buy 1, 2, or 3 properties. That's actually better for us than to have one group buying all the deals. And so we love our individual mom and pop clients. We don't want to just sell to big Wall Street billionaires. And that's actually better for our business to have that do it. And we have now over 1,500 clients, and we're managing almost 4,000 properties.
That's amazing. And I love that too, because that's the same sort of mission of Infinity, is to help the individual, the average Americans get to that point where they can be financially free.
Yeah, and that summit is your... as a former high school teacher, no one knows better than I do how many holes there are in our educational system.
Oh, yes.
And I know a lot of you listening grew up going, I didn't learn that. My parents didn't know that. They told me to save. They told me to just do my match on my and so that's the other thing. We feel like that 3-day event that we have is like your catch up on real estate, your catch up on investing, your catch up on all the different strategies that we think are hot right now. So, we've been talking lately about storage units and RV parks and mobile home parks and manufactured homes. And 8 years ago, we didn't talk about those things at all.
So different.
It was multifamily, and Airbnb was new, and apartment, single family
even just
homes.
what you've seen with short-term rentals, how they spiked and how it's gone down. I mean, the market changes fast, and being in it and seeing trends is so helpful.
Well, so Toby had this 2-bedroom house. One of the Anderson partners, he had this 2-bedroom house in Indianapolis that was renting for $800 a month. And he said to me, "Hey, have you heard about this group called Pad Split? They rent it out by the room." So we took the living room and added 2 more bedrooms. So it's a 4-bedroom, 1-bath house. I'm talking like a C neighborhood. It's not near downtown. It's not near the university. It's not in the suburbs. It's just like blue collar, whatever. It's not a war zone, but it's nothing sexy. So now Toby's got this 4-bedroom, 1-bath. And keep in mind, we're getting $800 a month. We rent those 4 bedrooms out for $175 a week.
And it's just people, like, who are the tenants? Who's coming
So
in for
it's
a
like,
week at a time?
It's people that are staying. So I got 4 tenants that I put in a year ago that are still there, paying weekly rent. Now, they don't have utilities. They don't have maintenance, lawn care or anything. So Toby's got to pay for that. And Pad Split charges 10%. But it's been really interesting because he's getting $3,000 gross. Even after utilities and management fees, he's netting $2,000 a month. Before or after those same expenses, he was averaging like $600 a month. And so we have 15 more Pad Splits that we're converting. We're doing them in Kansas City. We're doing them in Winston-Salem. We're doing them in Charlotte. Because now we got to figure out the pros and cons. I mean, we did that with Airbnb, and there's definitely some pros and cons to owning an Airbnb. And now we're figuring out, all right, what's the downside? Like, what are we going to... Because one thing I've learned, it's 80-20. You love 80% of a strategy, and there's 20% that sucks.
Oh yeah, there's always going to be something.
Yeah, and so if you don't know what sucks beforehand, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And so I always try to make sure that people understand, here's the downside of a syndication, here's the downside of apartments, here's the downside of trailer parks, storage. Because some people are subconsciously searching for a way to invest in real estate that's the best.
Oh yeah, that doesn't...
Everybody's like, well, what's the best? Well, it depends.
Yeah, we get that question a lot. What's the best place to start? And
Right.
It's like, well, the best place to start is to learn and figure out what's going to work for you and what you like. What time? How much time do you want to put in? How much money you have? Do you want to be boots on the ground? Do you want to outsource all of that? And so that's a really great thing about the summit is that it goes through all of these different options.
Yeah, and even taking it a step higher, there's no such thing as pure passive, right? Because even if you have an apartment building with a property manager on site and a maintenance guy on site, you still have to manage the manager.
Yeah.
You may have to spend an hour a month actively reviewing financials, checking the bank statement. So there's this myth that there's, the only true passive investment would be like an annuity, where you can make 2%. So if you want passive, welcome to 2%, right? And so then it's like, all right, well, since everything is active, then what's the ratio? And one of the things that I found is like, for about every 10,000 a month passive, you're about 5 to 7 hours of active time. And so that's an interesting ratio because people have never thought about it that way.
No.
Because when you have your 401k, well, that's passive, but when the market crashes, you get screwed.
Yeah.
That's the downside. And so my big thing is saying to people, you have to be a good steward with your own money. You have to learn to carve 10 to 15 hours into your life every month to quarterback your own money. And you need to go check out your rentals every year. And you need to if you have an ownership in a business or a business loan, sit down and go through the financials. And a lot of people don't like to do that. They don't want to be the bad. They're like, I don't want to hassle with that. Well, then when you don't want hassle, then go make 3%, do annuities. And so that's an interesting thing that people have just never thought about. How do you be a passive investor? That's like a new thing for people.
Yeah. Well, this has been so informative, just this 10 minutes. So you guys can imagine how amazing this cash flow summit is. If you want to hear more about it, please go to infinityinvesting.com or Alpine Capital. Thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. It's always good to be at an Anderson event.
All right, thanks.